Our next topic is plant tissue analysis, and you might say, well, wait a second, you guys have talked about plant tissue analysis a couple of times already this spring. Why are you talking about it again? Well, here's the reason why. Because I can almost promise you that the nutrients aren't exactly on your farm or on my farm in balance and at the right levels. And if you're going to figure out how you can better invest your fertilizer dollars, you've got to have data. Yes, we want you to do soil tests, but you need to track during the growing season how you're doing on plant tissue analysis too. This is incredibly important. I can tell you that every high yield farmer we work with, they're doing plant tissue analysis all season long. This is so important, we just thought we need to talk a little more about it and go into some more details again today.
Last time we brought this topic up, we got a couple of responses from people about, well, what about sap testing? You know, this is something that is just starting to come into practice on some farms across the country, but it's just not this big thing yet. And even a lot of the guys that are doing sap testing are kind of trying it out and comparing it to what they're seeing with plant tissue testing that's been done for a long time. The other question that we got from a lot of people was, okay, well, how sure are you on these ranges on plant tissue testing? Look, that's a work in progress too, and it's something you have to track on your own farm just a little bit to kind of keep an eye on, well, here's where my levels were, and here's what I saw for a yield. Maybe I could be a little bit better in some things. But really, the whole base here that Brian's talking about is just starting with a program on your farm. Getting some soil testing done, then going to those same areas where you have a soil test from and pulling some plant tissue analysis to see, okay, I know what's out there in the ground, now what's actually getting into my plant, and am I running short on things? Because for too long in agriculture, we've just gone by, well, I read this and this has been the information that's been out for 20 or 30 years that I need to be at these levels. And what we're seeing with our yields in the meantime is our yields have gone way up. And those levels just aren't true anymore. Now we need more to be in the soil, more to get into our plant to feed it properly when we're getting these high yields.
All right, so for Darren and me, just you know, I'll be up front with you on our own farm. Here's our yield goal. In the next 5 years, I'd like to average 300 bushel corn and 100 bushel soybeans. All right, last year I think we were 220 on corn, 70 on beans. So not bad. I'm not complaining about that, but I want to bump it to the next level. So we've been spending a lot of time with high yield farmers around the country. And here are a couple of things that we've learned, and now we're going to take it to this next level. Yes, we're doing a lot of soil testing, and I think what we're doing is great. We've even made our grids a little smaller. We're doing some zone stuff. I mean, you want to make sure you're testing in separate areas separately. But the next step with that is doing plant tissue analysis all season long and tracking those numbers. So, for example, if I go out to the exact spot where I had a soil test, I go to that spot, and every single week, first thing in the morning, I pull plant tissue analysis. Then I build a database to say, okay, these were where my parts per million were all season long. Here was my yield on that exact spot. So I'm looking at one spot, not a whole field average or anything else. That doesn't get you where you need to go. Look at an exact spot. And then you can say, okay, well, these were where my levels were. What do I need to do to bump those levels a little bit? So let's say my zinc was at this level. Well, now I can try moving that up a little bit. Yes, there's a lot of experimentation and trial and error and everything else, but if you don't have actual data on your farm that you continually get throughout the season, you don't have enough information to say, okay, I can see that all season long my zinc levels were really low, for example, or my boron levels were really low. Wow, that is a nutrient that I am absolutely going to do everything I can to fix going into the next season.
You have to be intentional about this program. Hey, this is what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it. And you think, man, this is going to take a lot of my time up. It really takes maybe 5 minutes to pull a plant tissue test. So even if you're doing 10 or 12 spots on your farm, it takes an hour. It's not that big a deal, and you're out looking at fields anyway. Why not be productive when you're out there? So take that extra 1 hour per week to understand what's going on with fertility, which is likely your biggest expense on the farm.
All right, the big reason why we're talking about this today, again, even though we have discussed it a couple times earlier this spring, is we want you to keep going. In other words, don't just pull one test. Don't just pull one test a month. That is not enough information. You've got to be out there every week. And you don't have to do a whole bunch of spots. Just be selective on where you're going, so it's a grid sample point for soil testing. Or if you don't have soil tests, just pick a spot, you can soil test now. You can soil test again this fall if you want to in that same spot. And every year keep going back to that spot and keep going back to that spot not only for soil tests but plant tissue analysis all season long. It's really going to help you, I can promise you. If you have more data, you're going to get a lot smarter.
And if you have questions as you go throughout the season, well, we're there each week. You can send questions to us, radio@agphd.com. We'll talk about them each day on our Ag PhD radio program.
Well, another thing that's important if you want high yields is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to do it on your farm coming up later in the show.